What's going on, fight fans? This is Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Rob Jarrell, and this is the preview to Saturday's junior middleweight WBC Eliminator featuring Terrell Gausha taking on Erickson Lubin. Both guys have one loss on their records to pretty much their best competition to date. We know Gausha lost to Erislandy Laura, no shame in it, and we know Lubin got pretty much blitzed by Jamal Charlo. Yup. So here we go. So this is a pretty interesting fight because we know Gausha, he was in the Olympics, had a decent showing, but didn't medal. So he's looking to really continue to build and move to the next level. Again, Laura, who's a tough opponent for anyone, unless you're can blitz and walk them down consistently, it's not going to be an easy fight or easy win or even a really convincing win. He drew with Austin Trout. Again, another difficult opponent, even though as I rewatched that fight, I thought Gausha pretty much handled Trout, and I like Austin Trout. Then he had a win versus Joey Hernandez, but those are his three biggest fights. They're pretty big step up in competitions from the fights he had prior to that. Then we have Erickson Lubin, who has actually had a pretty decent record. He beat Nathaniel Gallimore, which is a good win against a hard-hitting guy. Doesn't really have the athleticism or the explosiveness that a Jamal Charlo does, but he's faced Gallimore, Ishii Smith, and he's also faced Jorge Cota. It's kind of hard to get anything out of that Jamal Charlo fight, except the dude was such a much better fighter, much more prepared, much more polished, much more experienced, and really, to me, a bad matchup against the still somewhat green Erickson Lubin. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. Terrell Gausha, even though I don't think he's had the best competition, he has faced 3 straight southpaws in a row. Actually, I want to say it's 4 between Hernandez, Trout, Laura, and I think Luis Hernandez. I think who is also undefeated. I'm sorry, who was not undefeated, but still, I think it was 3 straight southpaws or 4 straight southpaws. Nope, he wasn't a southpaw either. Oh well. But he's faced 3 straight southpaws ever since that fight. And it's going to be interesting because Lubin is a southpaw. And he's a very good one. He's a very fast one. He's a really good puncher. He has a very educated right hook that he should use in this fight. Gausha is not really that fast. While he's a hard puncher, he's just not an explosive one. He's not a knockout artist. In 23 fights, he's only got 10 KOs. But he's a very solid puncher. So he's going to get Lubin's attention. I think he should be able to start pushing Lubin back. And I'm talking about very long punches from the outside, getting mid-range, and throwing those looping shots. He likes to throw a looping right hand to the body and then follow it up top with an overhand right. He'll be looking to set up the right hand throughout the fight. He does have a good jab, not necessarily fast, but it's basically a setup punch. I don't really see his left hook being a huge factor in this fight unless he goes downstairs. Lubin, on the other hand, he is fast, he is explosive. If I'm not mistaken, he has more knockouts as well. So in 23 fights, he has 16 knockouts. I don't think he's going to be able to knock Gallimore. I don't think he's going to be able to knock Gausha out. Gausha is very tough, but he hasn't really faced any big punchers. I think if he's able to work the jab and keep Lubin on his back foot, then he should be able to walk him down because he likes to encroach space. He can push the pace. He's got to turn up the volume. I've never seen him throw more than 3 punches at a time. And I think doubling up, tripling up that jab and setting up for the right hand, keeping him in front of him, because Lubin does tend to go straight back. I think being able to encroach that space is going to do well for Gausha. Lubin, on the other hand, decent chin, Showed that he can weather a storm against Gallimore, but he really didn't get hit solidly in that fight. I think Gausha is going to be a bit more accurate. Lubin has to work that right hook. And I think if he doubles up the right hook to the body, because that body punch is going to be there and come upstairs and in with the straight left, I think he'll be able to put hands on Gausha. He has to dictate the pace of the fight, and he has to move laterally. Getting Gausha to reach across his body will be key. Trout kind of moved into the direction of Gausha's power hand. I would not suggest doing that. You always want to move away from the power hand. You want to keep your lead foot on the outside of your opponent's lead foot, especially if you're southpaw, if you're fighting a southpaw, or vice versa, if you're orthodox fighter fighting a southpaw. You want to keep your lead foot on the outside of theirs. I think Lubin, with his better hook, should be able to make him extend with that right by stepping on the outside, turn a little bit, boom, boom, and coming upstairs. And if he can end it with a straight left, which Gausha should be in line for, he should have a pretty decent night. I don't think he's going to knock Gausha out. I want to say this is going to be a pretty competitive fight over 12 rounds. I think they're going to have their moments. I think Lubin's going to have more moments. I think he's going to have the more explosive punches, even though Gausha is going to have those kind of solid punches that are going to land pretty heavy. But I don't think they're going to be hard enough to really stop Lubin. I don't think that Jermell Charlo fight is always going to stick in the mind of a lot of people, because he, like I said, that was a bad matchup. You're talking about a guy who's as fast and who's as explosive and more athletic. Then Lubin able to set up that jab and come right hand, right down the middle. And considering how nasty of a disposition that Charlo has, I think Lubin just wasn't ready for that level. Now, I don't think he's going to get that out of Gausha. I think Gausha is going to be able to use that jab and set up that right hand. But I think Lubin has just enough experience to stay out of the way of that. That Gallimore fight, I think, was a very good indicator that he is growing. And Gausha is the next logical step to getting into that WBC Eliminator. And if I'm not mistaken, let's see who has the belt for the WBC. All right, junior middleweight, and it's Jermell Charlo. So this is basically for a rematch. Lubin wants to get that rematch versus Jermell Charlo, and if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be fighting Jason Rosario next week. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. On the undercard to that fight, you have a really, 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 really good polished prospect in Jared Ennis, who's going to be taking a pretty decent step up against Juan Carlos Abreu at welterweight. I think this gets him, if not in the top 10, the top 15. He's going to be looking for an eliminator after this fight. And then we have King Tut Nyembiar, or I don't want to try to pronounce his name, taking on Eduardo Ramirez or Kobe Breedy, because I think that fight might have changed. Kobaya Breedy out of Barbados, but fighting out of the DMV. So if they do, I think they're gonna fight. I think he's stepping in against King Tug. So that should be interesting. He's not a big puncher, and King Tug is a much bigger puncher. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting fight. But I'm taking King Tug in that. He impressed me in his last fight versus Gary Russell. I just don't think he had the speed to deal with them. And he's facing another guy who I think he has a 2 to 3 inch height advantage. So stay tuned. It should be a really, really, really good card. That's all I got for you today. If you have any questions, or you have any comments, or if you think I'm wrong about this whole thing, I don't mind you telling me. Just tell me your thoughts. Keep it respectful with us and yourselves. And stay tuned because Hakeem's going to bring you the preview to this weekend's MMA matchup featuring Kobe Covington taking on Tyron Woodley. And until next time, bye.
This is round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming.